Corn.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming in this evening. And this time we have a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Motion by Ron,
Second.
second by Kevin. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, this time we have time for public comments. Oh, Larry?
Yeah. Probably you all don't own, everybody don't probably know me, but my name is Larry Gausted. I lived in Houston all my life. I graduated from Houston High School in 1970. So I'm one of the old timers here. As we all know, we lost one of our beloved teachers this last year, Arlie Erke. And I've been talking to a lot of people. I talked to a few of the board members and wondering what it would take to name the athletic field in memorial of Arlie Erke, if it's a possibility or what it would be. That's the reason I'm here tonight, to see what consensus we could come up with. A lot of the questions have been asked me from the older classmates in 65, 66 on up. Wondering what we can do to memorialize Arlie. He did a lot for our school district, bringing in the different bands to support our athletic department. And I think it'd be a good thing for Houston to memorize Arlie this way. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I know it's been on the table, we've been discussing it, and we have a policy committee that we're going with, starting there, so we get some standardization on a policy and a procedure if, what we decide to do. So that's kind of how we are starting that process. So we can keep you updated at the meetings, we kind of bring it up.
Talked to a few people, there's some money being raised for something like this, for a sign or whatever. So I'd like to, if they want somebody to work with them, I'd sure be willing to do it, because Arlie was one of my great teachers, and I'd sure like to see this done for him and the family.
Okay, we'll bring, when it comes up, we, brought it up at the facility meeting, and again, it's coming up through policy, and
Right.
we just want to have it, if we're going to do something, we want to make sure it's fair and equitable,
Right,
across the
yes.
board, so.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem, thank you.
Mr. Chair, there is, we do have a bit of a precedent with the Owen Onsgaard facility on school property, so we've done that.
Correct.
But this is a little different in terms of what it is, so I think it's a good, I'm glad we're going to look at it. I hope it can happen.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any? Okay, thanks again. Consent items. Do we have a motion to approve the consent items?
So,
Second.
Motion by Kevin, second by Michaeline. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Discussion items. First is principal update. Angela.
That would be me. So I was here back in September and sharing, each of the schools was sharing their vision and their direction and where they were headed for the coming school year. So I kind of wanted to just piggyback off of that and kind of give you an update of where we are. In September, we talked a lot about academically where our school is, the needs of our kids, the lack of resources, some of the support programs that we maybe needed to bring in. And there were recommendations made by, I think it was primarily the online school committee meeting, but I think it also was talked about here in the board meeting in September, just in terms of how can we capitalize as a district and utilize the strengths of other schools, making sure that we're collaborating, just sharing the strengths essentially. And so I wanted to give you an update on where we're at with some of those initiatives. Rick and I have met a couple times now. We talked a couple times on the phone just in terms of what are some things that are happening in his building that maybe we could be doing in MNBA. We've also met in person and really tried to hash through some of those things. We did come up with a list, and I'm happy to share it with you, but I can just kind of speak to some of those bullet points. We tried to brainstorm the types of things that are happening in his building that are maybe not happening in MNBA. And there are a lot of the things that I think we've already brought up and discussed. There were some new things that we did highlight, and we are pursuing those. Primarily, the biggest differences that we were seeing is, again, the Title I access to those funds. So we did actually explore why it is that MNBA does not qualify for Title I. And it's not that we don't qualify if we're understanding it essentially. So essentially, the Title I funds come in as a district, and then it's up to the district to decide how those funds get dispersed. And typically, districts oftentimes will look at the school that has the highest level of free and reduced lunch, which right now is the elementary school. So that's why the funds are going that direction. We have talked about, well, what happens if MNBA's free and reduced population increases? Would that divert more money to MNBA versus the elementary school, or how would that look? And I think even if we were to increase MNBA's free and reduced percentages such that it would generate additional funds for the district, it probably wouldn't generate enough funds that it would, I don't know how to say this, that it would give us the types of support that currently is happening in the elementary. It really is kind of a question within the district that of this money, how do we want to spend it? And I think just given the nature that the elementary school is a face-to-face building, you probably have more impact in terms of being able to serve those kids more so than an online setting. It probably does make the most sense that the funds are going that direction. But ultimately, in terms of Title I, that's a decision that as a district, we can decide how to allocate those funds. So right now, those are all going to the elementary building. We talked about the ADSYS grant that he has, and we are looking, you and I have not spoken about it specifically, but I know we're looking to add MNBA to that on the next renewal. And when I talked to Rick about how that currently is benefiting his program, he said, and I hope I have this right, that he said he gets one additional teacher that supports at-risk kids. So it's kind of a pull-out situation, but he has one full-time teacher because of that grant. So if we qualified, and I don't know if it's a qualification that because he's a building of 200, 250 kids or what have you, if elementary is double that, for example, would that mean that we would qualify for twice that level? We'd get 2 teachers, or if it's just a fixed number that we would then also qualify for 1. So some of those kinds of details I think we're still working out. But I think that if we can get that qualified, that would be a fantastic resource in terms of being able to get additional support, teacher support to those students. The other grant he talked to me about was the ITA Foundations grant, and that was new. That was not something we had talked about previously, so we are going to look into that. I think there's some limitations in terms of the curriculum that is used.
ITA?
ITA.
What does that stand?
Initial teaching alphabet.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think when we were talking about it when we met, he likes it. He said the curriculum might have some opposition just in terms of it's an older type of curriculum style, and so not everybody necessarily buys into that type of instruction. And I think just given how involved our parents are in this model in MNBA compared to maybe in a traditional setting, we may get some pushback there, but I think that's not a hurdle that is something we couldn't overcome. I think the larger issue is that if we pursue this with ITA, and if we did qualify, for example, right now all of their curriculum and all the tools that they use in buildings, it's paper. It's a textbook, it's paper, it's not online. So we would have the task of somehow trying to figure out how to get that into an online format for our kids and for our teachers. But that one, he said he's currently getting 2 full-time teachers and a para. So again, I think the question in terms of FTEs and what that would ultimately mean for MNBA is still unknown, but that's something I think we're definitely going to at least explore moving forward. The other one that we talked about is I think when you just look at the support in general, he does have smaller class sizes in his gen ed classrooms than MNBA does. So that's one level where kids are getting more teacher time than they are in MNBA. Plus he has all of the grant teachers that he's getting. So I think in overall level of support, his building is able to support those kids through additional staffing, if that makes sense to me or to you. And I think that's where we're looking at in MNBA, if there's a way that we can replicate that in any way. I mean, it really, I think, does come down to how do we get the teachers with the students and more contact time, essentially. So I think we're going to try to explore that as much as we can. To some extent, I think we are limited just, again, because even when we identify a student who might qualify for these services, sometimes getting them to the table is very different than it is in a traditional building. The kids come in the door at 8 o'clock, you have them until 3 o'clock when they leave, you get to decide where they go. In an online world, we're really relying on a parent to buy into the fact that their child needs that additional support, that what they're receiving is beneficial to them, and that they will ensure that their child comes. That, you've heard me say that for years. I think that really is a dilemma that we face. And some kids do show up, but sometimes the kids that really need the most help, those are the ones that we just can't reach. So I think that's also going to be a long-term dilemma for us. So we have had those conversations. I have not reached out to Todd specifically, but there were a couple things with the next bullet point that I'm going to talk about that I think Todd and I do need to talk about just in terms of how things are happening at the high school versus MNBA's high school, just so that we can learn from him, but also just making sure that we're consistent. So I think this is going to be a long-term thing, and certainly I know the request was made that we make this more public so that you're aware of those conversations, and I'm happy to do so. So I don't know if you've got any questions about those conversations that have happened.
Anybody have any questions for her this
Yes.
time?
Huh?
Let's go to Mike.
How do you gather the data for free and reduced lunch through MNBA? I mean, do we have families that apply?
Yep.
Okay. And you just send the form, is just one of the forms that they are invited to fill out like ours are?
Exactly, yep, so
Okay.
we're required to send it out as a
Yep.
school, so we send it out.
Okay.
It is private information, so
Yes.
I don't
Yep.
necessarily know who qualifies and who doesn't, but that does all get funneled into our office. If you qualify, you do get benefits, it's just you don't get lunch. You get reimbursement for some mileage for activities,
Okay.
you get a computer, those types of things.
Okay.
So there is a benefit, I mean, so we do try to publicize it to our families.
Okay, I just didn't know how.
I'm assuming we still send something out with the form explaining why
Yep.
it's important?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Okay. And then on the ADSIS, Corinne, do you see, I feel like the conversation in the past was that there might be a challenge to including online schools in that grant when it's a little bit iffy whether that will derail receiving the grant as a district.
When we submitted the application for the funding the last time, I reached out to the online person at MDE to see if she would be supportive of us applying, in which she put in her word of support with the ADSIS folks that we really can do this in an online world, because that was the question that was coming to me from the people in charge of ADSIS at MDE. We're not sure you can do this in an online world. So I reached out to the online person and said, can you verify that we can do this? And she said, I don't think I'm comfortable doing that. And so then I knew that we were basically dead there, because the one person they would listen to wouldn't speak on our behalf. Now we've got someone who's in that position in MDE who I think would be more of a champion for our cause, and who would reach out to the new ADSIS person, because the ADSIS person that had been there from the beginning of ADSIS has now been moved to a different division in MDE. So we've got someone newer in ADSIS, and we've got a new person for online. And so I'm hoping that that's kind of the perfect storm, so we can add the ADSIS and get it to go through.
I just feel like that was a challenge.
Oh, the last time we knew we'd be dead in the water, so that's why we didn't add them.
And then on the using ITA, just a question, I don't know who can answer this, that since you said it's an older type of curriculum and it's all paper, is it a completely continuously viable foundation and funding source? And are they doing anything to become more relevant in today's, or is there some other alternate reading support that we should, I don't know. You know what I'm asking? I'm trying.
Right now, their funding source seems to be very viable.
Okay.
They seem to have the wherewithal to continue funding for some time. As far as another reading intervention, there are a myriad of interventions out there. However, I'm not sure how many of them would come with the type of funding we're continually getting from ITA. The thing about ITA, it was created in the late 60s. It's all print. It is initial teaching alphabet, meaning that it uses a different alphabet. There are different letters that correspond to the 71 different sounds within our language. So instead of 26 letters, it has, I think, 71 different letters. So that students see the print using that 71 letter alphabet instead of our 26 letter alphabet. So then the letter that signifies the TH that's voiced as opposed to the TH that's a soft TH. They're two different letters in the way the book's written. And all of that is just print, none of it is electronic because, as I said, it was created in the late 60s.
And to your point about the interventions, we have a lot of, especially with reading, we have a lot of interventions going on, especially at the elementary level. So we're using Reading Eggs, we have IXL, we have Read Natural, and so we have those same programs that Rick is using. I think where we're struggling is that right now our gen ed teachers are the only staffing that's able to do that. So, we're trying to do as much pull-out with the gen ed teacher as we can, but I think it's the component of the staffing and the funding behind the curriculum or the intervention that really would benefit us the most.
Right now, they're doing all the tier 1 intervention they can, and that's tier 1s with the general ed teacher in small group in the general ed setting. But what they really need is the tier 2 with another teacher to pull those kids out and really specifically focus in. And that's what ADSYS is a tier 2, ITA is a tier 2. Those kids are in their own group in a separate classroom.
So you get separate teachers. Have you explored any further the conversation about how to do, using the learning management system, a breakout classroom with a para or some additional staffing to provide support that is not a full teacher?
Exploration in terms of, I've been trying to think through how this maybe could work, and I've talked to a couple of individuals in terms of its application. I think where we're struggling is that, if this is my classroom and I'm the teacher, and I have a para in the back of the room working with kids, as I'm working with kids, as I'm pausing in my sentence, I can hear and see what's going on. And it's just a very natural extension, so I can supervise that more readily. When I look at it in an online platform, I'm logging into this room. Now I can get another computer and a laptop, and I can log in with a second login, so I can now be in the conference room. So I'm physically now, or I should say electronically, I'm in two places. But now how do I listen to both of those? In other words, how do I teach in this classroom but hear what's going on over there? That's more where the disconnect is happening, is that we can physically make it work, but to truly provide the level of supervision, I guess I would just be nervous if I knew my gen ed teachers were not truly supervising, to have a para in there that wasn't supervised. And I guess that's kind of where we're struggling with how do we make that work, where a teacher really can do the same type of thing they do in a classroom. So we have not closed the door on that. I think we're still working through that, but we haven't found an easy answer yet.
Okay, thanks for looking at it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Well, then I
Thanks,
just have really quick, just in terms of where we're moving beyond this, we talked a lot about our vision and MNBA, and I think with reorganization and trying to look at treating us as a school and looking at where are those processes and procedures, are we being consistent in how we're administering those? There's a couple of initiatives that I really have kind of made my own this year. And one of them is making sure that we are being consistent across all of our processes and procedures, that not only are we doing the same thing in elementary as we do in high school where it makes sense, but also looking at all of those and saying, is this the most effective and efficient way to do things? And we actually had a meeting this afternoon with the high school staff where we were looking at a series of those types of processes in terms of how do we enroll new students, how do we get courses assigned to them, how do we do it for returning students, what's our process for doing some of the testing, Plan and Explore that we used to have, what's the equivalent. So we're kind of starting to talk through all of those processes. And the question came up this afternoon, and I think it was a relevant one. What's my agenda? They wanted to know from me, am I planning to change everything? And I guess, no, not necessarily, but I guess I want to make sure that we're at least evaluating everything, and we're as a team looking at it saying, what's working, what isn't working, and if we need to make a change, let's change it and do it right so we can be done with this. And that's kind of where I want to very methodically start going through some of those processes. We may find that we don't need to make any changes to anything. If that's the case, great. But I think there's enough kinds of things that occasionally come up where we go, why don't we do that? That I think at least it begs the question for us to review that. So that's going to be kind of an ongoing thing that we'll be doing all this school year. And the other piece that kind of is very near and dear to my heart is that I really do want to make sure we're focusing on the culture of the school. I think we do have some issues with culture and morale that I really would like to try to address, and so I think this is the year that we really want to spend some time doing that. We have a staff development day next Monday, so we're getting together face to face, and a good chunk of what that will be is basically talking about our culture, talking about our morale, not necessarily dwelling on, here's all the things that aren't working in our school, and this is why I feel bad about my job and why I feel bad about the school. but what can I do in my classroom, and what can I do in my individual job and change my own world while we also address the larger issue. So I really want to try to get everybody to start thinking about how can I positively influence my own space and my own area as we all try to then move the school forward. So I think that's going to be a growing initiative through the school year as well. So that's all I have.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Okay, preschool task force.
Okay, there's a board discussion item that's longer than typical, but this is also, I want to preface this, as we've been talking about this is the snapshot of right now. Right now, funding for preschool is in community education. Legislatively, they're talking about moving that to general ed. How that will make a change, I'm not sure. Will that happen? I'm not sure. I do know that that's one of the governor's legacy type things, where he's talking about preschool. I know what it costs this year to run the preschool. I know we're getting right now in Pathway 1 and Pathway 2 scholarships. Now the Pathway 1 scholarships, though that money is based on the number of students who qualified this year. And so that number can change. At the last board meeting, I was talking about if we get creative, we can get more funds, and I know that a couple of people raised eyebrows. What I meant by that is with that Pathway 1 scholarship, if we apply for an enhanced program, and that's one of the reasons I asked for the task force, what does it mean to be an enhanced program? What are the things that really qualify for that? We could boost the funding from $1,900 per child to $7,500 per child. However, if we're going to write something in our program to get these funds, we're going to do it. I'm not going to write something just to get the funds and then not do it. If we're writing that that's how we're enhancing our program, then we actually have to find a way to do that. There are other funds with the learning readiness that we could, and that is an entitlement, which really increased this last year. It went from 20 to 41,000, so that's a huge increase. But to use that for preschool, we have to adhere to a 1 to 10 ratio. So each teacher only can have 10 students, and we are way over that ratio. So if we're going to use those learning readiness dollars, we will need to increase staffing. And so there's for, as Gwen and I worked out the numbers here. Gwen was giving me the numbers, and I was asking all kinds of what-if questions, and she was just looking at me saying, we don't know. And so I was trying to come up, at first, come up with a spreadsheet, bulleted, easy way to look at it. And for every answer, if there's a change, it brings all kinds of new questions to it. And so I wrote this in the easiest way I could to come up with something that has all kinds of, there are all kinds of what-ifs with this. It's not a, because before when Gwen was saying, it's not an easy answer. Right now, as far as tuition costs are coming in at about $14,000, and then we're using other things to subsidize that. But it's also one of those things where if we don't have that and we want more people to fill out the Pathway scholarship, if they're not filling out the Pathway application, we don't get the Pathway dollars. They physically have to fill out the Pathway application for us to get those dollars. And if we're saying there is no cost, what is the carrot to have them fill that out? Because if we're going to base our budget on getting those Pathway dollars and we don't get any applications,
So
then we end up with a deficit.
you say it costs us $63,833 to run preschool.
Right now with the staffing we have.
So you have 2 full-time teachers,
We have one full-time general ed teacher. You've got to remember that the other teacher we have there is special ed, and that's not included in that. That's the general ed. The special ed is separate funding. That's through ECSE, Early Childhood Special Education. That's a different funding source. This preschool is community education. And so that's the other thing, that it's
You can't make it mandatory for them to fill out the application?
for the pathway,
Yeah.
Scully. We give it to them and we say they qualify, but it's the same as free and reduced price lunch. We give it to them, but we can't mandate anyone fill it out.
Yeah, but they don't necessarily know that. And, you know, I mean,
Well,
I
have
know
to
it's
fill
not
out
politically
enrollment
correct.
forms. I mean,
but,
you have to fill
we
out
have to pay for
enrollment
this
forms,
stuff. So there has to be a way to do it. And so somehow or another, it seems like we could, we don't have to explain to them they don't have to do it.
Right.
But this is how we pay for it.
Mhm.
And if they don't want to be a part of that,
So
then I
this-
guess, at some point, I guess they could. Anyway,
So the cost is 63,833, and of that, how much is paid for right now?
With that, we've got the 9,500 with the Pathway 1 scholarship and the 1,500 in Pathway 2. So of that, we've got the,
So 53,000 roughly, 54,000 roughly.
And she said 14,000 and people are paying.
right, no, 15,095. So we've got 25,000 of that paid for,
Okay.
plus the 14. And then,
Can we take how much from community ed to pay the difference?
yep,
I mean, how much is that, do you remember? Is it
Sounds like
Like
approximately
30
half.
some
It's about half. It's
about half,
Yeah.
right? It's about 30 grand.
yeah,
And that doesn't count transportation.
right.
But right now, we're not providing transportation?
We are only providing transportation right now for any special ed student gets transportation because we can get the special ed transportation reimbursement for special ed transportation. We are also providing transportation for any child that's at a daycare. And they're paying, is it $1?
I think it's $2.
We're taking that money from
It's $2 that we pay for one.
Okay,
That's just you.
yeah.
Just joking, just joking.
Right, and so then we've got, it doesn't quite cover the cost of that, but we're,
So all in, we're losing money then, right? That's what you're-
33,000.
33,000.
Right, right.
Got it.
Right the way it is
So
right now.
without- That doesn't include the buses, the 33,000, or it does?
no.
So how much would you suppose that would be, guesstimate? I mean, I just want to know
With
what the net.
transportation, preschool transportation for the noon.
If we were
it's
to
just
pay
the-
it for preschool transportation, what would
But
that
if,
cost?
if it was going to be free, we would be transporting
All the kids.
all the
Well, that's what I
kids.
mean,
And
yeah.
so then it wouldn't just be to those, because right now, just going to the daycares,
Well, we can decide how it is, right? I mean, wouldn't have to be.
Well, the concern I would have with this, and I think it'd be great to do free preschool. I think it'd be a great option, but we'd have to figure out if, and I think you mentioned this last time, Amy, if we do that, and are we gonna have a limited quantity of spots? Because everything that changes on this, from what I'm getting, from what I'm reading, that's for one teacher, a para, and that's what that costs. So if we increase the amount of kids, that's what we have, 17 kids about? Is that what it is?
what we've got,
For what this 63 covers?
the problem is
Now
we've
with the
got
extra kids.
we've got 33 kids total. However, they're split among 4 different sessions. We've got 3-year-olds that are there Tuesday, Thursday. We've got the other group of 3-year-olds that are there Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We've got a group of 4-year-olds that are
So
there Monday through
collectively,
Thursday.
how many kids do we have?
33.
33 kids. So right now, at 33 kids, it costs us $63,800 to do that many children and in a variety of spaces. So if we were to open it up to anybody, in order to keep this cost at where it's at, we wouldn't be able to allow any more than that kids into the building.
Well, you might be able to allow 3 or 4 or 10.
We don't know.
Or
No, no,
0.
I'm
We
just-
don't
We don't know
know.
that we're at a limit now.
well, isn't
Yeah.
that what the task force would do.
That's what,
I
thank
mean,
you.
Yeah, no, that's exactly.
Because I've got about a million questions in here as well, you know, if we open it up, how many kids do we expect? You know, do we have facilities that can handle that, et cetera, et cetera? And isn't that
No,
what the
that'd
task
be-
force does, is put that all together, bring it back in and say, here's what we're looking at, and here's what our recommendation might be, right?
Right, and that's why I was asking if we could form the task force, and you wanted numbers first, so I've given you the numbers
Okay.
first, and I have not. I have tried to make it as
No, that's-
clear as possible, but there are a lot of these things where there just are a lot of questions, and that's why I asked for the task force in the first place, because there are a lot of questions.
So this information has been provided by you and Gwen, we're putting your heads together?
Correct.
Okay.
Because
So the
we're
next
asking
step
for the
would
task
be,
force.
Do we need a motion for a task force?
Or just,
how do you
if
wanna do
you, as a board, it's
We
not
can
really a
just
motion, but
recommend.
if you have a consensus on the board and the board chair says, you know, go ahead and get the task force together, I think
I
that would
mean,
be.
Kevin, I'm kind of picking up that's what you think would be a good idea. Mike Lean,
Yeah.
Gary,
Definitely.
Mimi, I'm sure you want to.
Yeah, I think that it not only needs to look at what it would take and if it's feasible for us to do free preschool right away, but what are we going to do if they change and we are going to have free preschool from the state? So we need to plan for both
Every-
scenarios.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And that would be part of the
And-
conversation.
And how
Yeah.
do we have the best preschool? So it's
Yeah.
really like preschool strategy task force.
Mhm.
Please, yes.
Ron, you good? Yeah, okay. Let's make it happen.
Okay.
So who is going to be on the task force? And so at the bottom, I think, is the task force composed of teachers and administrators at the very least. So
Right.
is that, do we have any input on who we expect?
Well, I would assume the people that are working at the preschool would be part of that
Mm-hmm.
as a given. And I would assume that Rick would be, Mr. Bartz would be part of it. I mean, you guys speak up if you can think of others.
Well, maybe
Board
she can
members.
just send out
Yeah.
who she has, and so we can look at that and make suggestions if we think someone else should be added or whatever. Would that
Oh, yes.
satisfy you, Mike?
I just want to know, I don't have any, I just want to know who's going to,
Yeah.
who's going to be. But not
I think she should
names,
tell
not,
us.
I don't need names, and positions, you know,
Yeah,
what
right.
kind of positions.
Yeah.
So,
So can you do that?
You bet.
Okay.
any other questions on that? Okay, winter weather policy for,
After today, there is no winter coming. I don't believe it.
It's a gorgeous day.
okay.
We're gonna pay.
This is just
Gonna
once
do this.
again the yearly update to remind you of what it says in our policy, that if school is closed and all evening activities are canceled, this is an evening activity, which means that we will hold the regularly scheduled board meeting exactly 1 week later, same time, same place, and it doesn't require any board action because it states in policy. So it's just a
FYI.
Yep, FYI, so there aren't any questions.
Staff, do anybody have any questions on that?
Be a new seal, you know.
Staff development plan.
And this was just kind of this will be coming up as old business at our next meeting. But I just wanted to explain, the plan really should have come to you when we adopted the goals for the next year. And I was under the assumption that the staff development plan was going to be rolled right into World's Best Workforce. But then as I was looking at statutes, they didn't repeal this statute, so we still need a separate standalone plan. So I am just asking you to approve this so we are in compliance with all statute language.
So moved.
Oh, well, next meeting.
Oh, next
it's the-
meeting, okay.
It's
We're gonna do it
the,
first.
yep,
Okay.
it'll be going on old business, it's just you can look at it first.
I'll move it then.
Yeah, okay.
We'll wait. Will you be here or in New Zealand? Okay, any questions on that? Facility committee recap?
Go ahead.
Do you have the list that we went over? Let me just,
Oh.
There.
yeah.
Oh, it's
No,
right there.
I meant up on the screen, okay. As you can see, we went through a lot of things. We started with the elementary cafeteria that we've been talking about for a long time. It's something that fortunately can wait, so we're looking at postponing that because the current estimate is roughly 1.2 million. One of the possibilities we're looking at is doing something in conjunction with the city that might have an effect on when it can be done, but for the time being, it's on hold for future consideration. A more pressing issue is repiping the high school with copper pipes. Not long ago, we had another break, and a lot of these breaks are happening at unions, tees, where the threads are a little thinner, and they just wear through, pop a hole, and all of a sudden we got a problem.
It's all galvanized and it's all 60-year-old galvanized pipe.
Right, so we're looking at the possibility of replacing the galvanized piping with PEXing, just to get a little lower cost rather than copper pipes, and hopefully longer life.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
How come, did UNESCO consider this in doing their walkthrough, looking at facilities upgrades, and how come this got missed?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
Good
Yep,
question.
that's a good question.
that's frustrating.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, sometimes unless there's a problem, you look at pipes and pipes are pipes and it's difficult to tell how old they are.
Well, they were looking at a lot of stuff that was old
Yeah,
and like
okay.
outlived its life and was
It probably
recommended
should have been
for.
something that they addressed.
Hmm?
I mean, it probably should have been something that they
Yeah,
addressed.
anyway, I'm just, sorry, go ahead.
Is
Yeah,
PAX,
it's a good question.
Is PAX kosher to use?
We gotta find out.
Yep, there's some research that has to go into whether or not we can use that.
Because that's going to be an expensive little project, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, yeah. The next thing we talked about was the garage over by the preschool and whether or not it should include extras, how much space for storage. And the bottom line is we're looking at getting quotes for concrete and materials for a 3-car garage and go from there. Because you said the existing concrete slab's going to be taken out, so we're pretty much
It's-
starting over.
The existing
garage
concrete
down?
slab is in several parts.
No, it's not down yet.
It's going to be taken.
It's gonna be, it's part of that demo.
It's part of the house demo next?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
The garage was built in 2 parts to begin with.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just
I don't have a
it's just
question, I
coming
just
down.
don't remember talking about
Yeah,
demoing
it's
that.
coming down.
I know. Fine, thanks.
Right.
And we did last.
I probably wasn't here.
Okay,
How
paving.
big is a 3-car garage, roughly?
Well,
That's up to, it's one of these situations, we threw out a 3-car garage, Ron, because we wanna look at what we could put there
Oh, okay.
first,
And
We
but
have to look
it will
at
fit
setbacks
that,
and,
we don't know. We have to look at setbacks and everything else that's required. It was, the 3-car garage was just thrown out there as, you know,
To get
that's,
an estimate.
yeah.
yeah, it's the
Something
equivalent
so-
space, so to speak, of a 3-car garage.
because that's
However
what we
it's
have right
configured.
now as far as, it's a 2-car garage with about a 1-car stall tacked onto the
We just-
front of it, but
Just for pricing, so.
Paving and repair of parking lots, that includes the parking lot that direction and which other one?
well, if you wanted to pave by the student parking lot,
Oh, there,
yeah.
okay. We're looking at, let's see, where we're gonna get prices on
Quotes
that?
on that, yeah.
You- We've got quotes on it, you just need to,
No, they aren't. We're gonna
No, we
look
don't
at-
have quotes.
We have
Okay.
repair quotes, we looked at it,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
brought the
Okay.
information to us when we were at the meeting, and it was just patches.
okay.
So we need more numbers on that. Painting the elementary classrooms, that was not part of the UNESCO project and is slated to happen next summer because of the requirement to allow time for drying and so forth from the leakage that did occur. So that is planned for summer 2017. And the paint cost, that will just come out of general funds? Right, okay.
We should have some contingency left in that, in our plan.
Overall budget?
Mhm.
Right, okay. Redoing the science rooms at the high school, that was discussed, and we decided the only immediate thing that really should be done is fix the water faucets and the gas fixtures. Hopefully we're assuming the gas lines underneath are still good, and so we just,
Assumptions.
Yeah, we're going to check that one out before we just assume, but yeah.
right, that's the assumption, and if that's good, then we can just look at water faucets and gas fixtures. Oh, the other thing we talked about for painting the elementary classrooms was talking to Jerry Botcher and see how much it would cost to have him get involved in that.
We found out that it was, I think Rick said the last time they painted the gymnasium, it was actually cheaper to have Jerry do it because he was fast
Right.
and efficient.
Yep. Right, yep. Okay, re-roofing the elementary gym. Looks like we've got 3 years left on that warranty, so that's coming up in the not-too-distant future. The high school, we've got quite a bit more time left on that. I think that one was slated for like 2030,
2030.
quite a ways out. Okay, tennis court behind the high school. What do we want to do with that? And it is still used for Phi Ed. Todd said it would cost roughly $100,000 to replace the existing asphalt and what we have there now. So one of the possibilities is a floor similar to Owens Court. We just need to get numbers on that. Another possibility, just tear it out. But since it is still being used, I think we're looking at the possibility of a new floor.
We're just letting it,
Leaving it as is.
leaving it as
Yeah.
is.
Right.
It's just for history, when Dave Runnigan was hired here in 1976, in 1976, he was promised that he would get the tennis courts resurfaced the next year. And so he's still employed, and he is still waiting.
Perfect.
Okay, basketball court behind the high school, kind of a similar situation. We're just going to leave it for the time being. Rekeying the ADA doorknobs in buildings. I believe the elementary school is being done as they're replaced.
Right, elementary is done with ADA doorknobs, but the other thing we were looking at was to really have secure doors, having the fob open and shut on the doors, as well as the ADA doors.
Just for the public's, yeah, that's the American Disabilities Act.
Yes. Speaking acronyms, I'm
I
sorry.
just, I mean, we assume people know that, but
Yeah.
maybe not.
Yeah, and what does FOB stand for? No.
Other could have been the American Dental Association.
That's
Could
true.
have been.
Well, if you chew your doorknobs.
That's right. Yeah, if you take care of that.
You gotta be able to
then
open
it'd
them with
okay.
your teeth.
Okay, for the high school, one thing we talked about was gradually
Wait,
replacing.
no, that rebuilding of State Warehouse 6.
No, we're still
We're
back
not
on,
there yet.
we're
We're
not,
on
we're on.
ADA.
We're on
Wiki.
Wiki. Oh, I'm
No.
sorry.
Yeah.
We're still
I thought you were on.
Jumping ahead,
No,
Mike.
I'm
Just
sorry, I
relax.
heard him say high school and I jumped
We're
ahead.
doing
No.
knobs, yeah.
So we talked about at the high school, gradually replacing the doorknobs with the fobs, as they require replacing. So it's a phased-in type of thing.
I don't think you should wait till you should just put it on a schedule, shouldn't you?
Well, we're looking at doing so many per, as
Oh, that's, okay.
type of thing. It's on a schedule, but not, we're not gonna drop, because we figure it's gonna be expensive to do
Oh,
it all
yeah.
at once.
Right.
So the plan is to
I
put primary
misunderstood
doors
what
that
you
we
said
wanna
by
do
when-
at this
When
time.
they need replacing,
No.
I don't know what that means.
That was first part of the conversation, but then we kind of swayed it.
It went to a schedule.
Yeah.
Scheduled.
So-
Start with the doors where we have multiple people
primary-
needing to get in.
Okay.
Right, and then kind of go from there. Sorry.
Okay, rebuilding of the site where the house sits now next to the preschool, and that's the one that's going to be torn down soon, hopefully. For now, we're just looking at reseeding it because we don't know exactly what kind of facility would be needed. So that'll be part of the ongoing discussions. Senior lockers and new lockers in the elementary school. Senior lockers, we're looking at refurbishing, which Todd explained would be replacing the front door with maybe a heavier door, just kind of rebuilding around what's left and going that route. And then in the elementary school, I think we're just looking at possibly having that same company just come in and repaint all of them in tractor colors.
No, no tractor colors again.
John Deere green.
Okay.
Just joking.
So is this a, like, how much, is there only one company? Is that a done deal, or do you go out for quotes and find out who?
Quotes.
can-
We go out for
Yeah, okay.
quotes, but we need to have the company that can do the metal painting where it adheres to the metal. And there's not a lot of those out there.
And the Performing Arts Center is still in our long-term plans. A more pressing item is stage door replacement. And in discussing that, we decided it doesn't really need replacing so much as it just needs resurfacing. And
Where's
finally,
that?
the stage door in the high school.
High school.
The gym, in the gym.
Those folding
the
doors.
Gray doors.
Yeah. And the last thing we talked about was the signage issue. For the time being, we're going to focus on just doing signage above the doors, the district office door and the gym door.
Mhm.
And then continue to look at options for, what's that?
At preschool. We talked about that one.
Oh, yeah, preschool too, right. Yep.
Did we set aside funds for that? For
Well, see,
sign-
that's what we were asking about is, a lot of it's dependent on the budget that wants to be set aside for, or needs to be set aside for signage, so.
But that wasn't part of our big project.
Oh, for the PSA, ESA project, no, signage was not part of the big project.
Okay, did I miss anything?
Anybody have any questions?
Good job.
Thank you, Gary.
That's great. Okay, old business, item for discussion and approval, drama club advisor.
Once again, this would be to post, so we can hire a drama club advisor. It would be reactivating. This is a position that we used to have years ago.
Is this a year-long position, or, I mean, if we reactivate it now, we're getting ready for less than a full year, which is fine. I'm just, but would it be a club that would be active the full academic year? So-
And actually, it would also, there would, this is a club that also would be active during the summer.
So it's year round.
Okay, and that's in the description, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we have a motion? to-
Motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Joe, second by Ron. Discussion on it? So is that something I gotta, are we gonna be adding that to the contracts at all? Do we put that in there?
It's already in the,
It's
I
already,
can remember if I read it in there, it just needs to be reactivated. Okay.
yeah, it's already, there's a lot of positions that are
Yeah, I
in there
know.
that we don't have. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. New items for discussion and approval, policies for first reading. Policy 304, 306.
Neither of these have changed. MSBA has not made any changes since the last time we approved them, but they are just slated for, a lot of these policies are now finally at the, it's been 3 years, it's time to look at them again, and so everything's on a schedule.
Anything else you want to add to that, Michael?
no, it just begs the question. It's a very short, they're very short boilerplate. But the one on 304 does talk about, having some sort of evaluation tool. And having the policy begs that whole thing again. So I'm just saying, I don't think we've ever settled on process or tool. And I guess I just raised that for when do we talk about that again? I'm just asking you to be
Quinn and
aware
I
of that.
discussed it, I think it was the last week, we talked about it's getting to be that time again to start the process.
So-
But there's, the policy
Policy.
speaks to having a
Mhm.
agreed-upon tool that is agreed upon between superintendent and board.
This has been like a cow chewing a
Yeah.
cud, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
We chew this around and then we kind of redigest it,
Yeah.
and then next thing you know, it
It's up in
comes
our
up
mouth
and we're
again.
chewing it again.
It's
So maybe some.
Okay, I didn't know you, I
Formal
just
thing would
was
be a good
sort of
idea.
saying, let us know
No,
where
no,
you're, when it's on the radar.
Yeah,
You get the
retire
analogy,
soon.
don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Anything else on those? Okay, announcements, important events.
There's a lot, Election Day is Tuesday, November 8th, and we can't have any meetings that night after 6. The Veterans Day program, Friday, November 11th at 9:30, that's at the elementary school. And then I'm asked to remind that at the high school, all the veterans are invited for lunch at the high school and have lunch with the students here. And that really has been well received by both the veterans and the students. The next board meeting, we'll have the public hearing for the World's Best Workforce Plan. Also, we'll probably need to have a finance meeting before that one because we need to get ready for the Truth and Taxation meeting, December 6th. The Leadership Conference is January 12th and 13th. Phase 1 and Phase 2 training is the evening of the 10th and all day on the 11th. And in my superintendent update, I brought up, we've looked at different ways to get the school board together at a retreat or to really look at processes, look at the way we're functioning and working together. What would you think about going up on the 10th and 11th to Phase 1 and Phase 2 training together? And I know that's a huge time commitment.
My only concern is unawareness if I can get free of work. So it's the work obligations, and I will know that hopefully within the next couple of weeks. So if I'm available, I'd be willing. That's all I can say.
Are you, Amy?
I don't know if I can take that much. I mean, I was planning on the 12th and the 13th. It's been a while since I did Phase 1 and Phase 2. I don't remember them as being lots of fun.
I didn't say it was going to be fun. I just don't know why.
Is it gonna be useful? And I mean, because it was just very, these are kind of the rules, and I mean, is that what we need to listen to, or should we be working together? I just posed that question of, is that the best, if we get everyone together, is that the best use of our time, or would a different environment be better?
Yeah, would it make more sense to go the 12th, 13th, and then spend some time together then? I don't know.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
Well, we can go back and I proposed different programs that MSBA offers that could come here and do
Right.
a training as well. Those were kind of set aside as not, we were going to wait until January when a potential new board was seated. So probably should, I mean, we need to make this, probably this decision on this sooner than January because
Registration.
Maybe, could you tell us, maybe send out what's in Phase 2?
I was gonna say, you could
Do
send
they
out
break
the
you out
agenda.
into your school boards in that one? It's been so long, I don't remember.
it's Phase 1 and Phase 2 are the rules and regs of how to be a board member, responsibilities and the role of a board member pretty much.
Might as well wait till the new guy, or the people get on and make sure they're.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to, I mean, they're supposed to go to that Phase 1 and Phase 2 if there's a new person on the board.
Right, and I've talked to
And-
the one person who's running that has not been a board
Okay, I
member
was
before.
gonna ask you that
And he said he would look to see if he could get away from work.
But I
So
kind of
he
like
could-
Michaeline's idea, if we focus on the 12th and 13th and getting people there for that, for specifics, and then maybe after the new board seat, and in January have MSBA come down and do a training or whatever here. It'd be probably easier for work purposes. I know for me, it'd probably be very difficult for me to get 4 days off. You know,
I could probably do it.
yeah. Man.
Nice.
Yep, I'll think about you.
And the other thing, the legislative forum on February 4th, that's a Saturday, and unfortunately, the legislators from our region did not show last year, but
And in Rochester usually?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's coming up already.
February 4th.
All right, so ways away, yeah.
Wow.
And then I do have, I went to we did have collaborative today. I found out at, 11 today that we were going to have it, so it was, the 4 superintendents and 1 school board member from Caledonia was all that could come. And so we really couldn't have a meeting, but we discussed the fact that we have enough collaborative dollars for each individual school for this year.
Could you just refresh our memories on what the collaborative dollars do?
Houston County collaborative dollars are for social workers, children's mental health, and we use ours for what's not covered by the grant for Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Services to come in and do counseling with our kids.
Okay.
And then I do have one thank you. Audrey Olson submitted an application for a grant for daffodil bulbs to be used at a school, and she thought that they were going to be used at the school where she works, which is DeSoto, and DeSoto decided they did not want the daffodil bulbs. So when I came back from collaborative, I found 250 daffodil bulbs on my desk. So thank you to Audrey for the bulbs where we will plant somewhere.
When?
They're supposed to be, they're bulbs. They need to be planted in the fall to
Mhm.
grow in the
Perfect
spring.
Do.
So,
Marilyn Crown Buyer.
There you go.
She would volunteer that. Maybe.
She's a gardener.
Yeah.
I've talked to Randy Muller, our groundskeeper, and I talked to Dan Kildall.
How about Marty, you can get the environmental science students? No.
Heck, we've got 250 bulbs, sure.
Well, I don't know,
Yeah.
I mean, there were talk before when Jason Ludwigson was here about a,
Grass.
proposal about doing grasses and doing some landscaping.
Mhm.
I don't know where that's at. I don't know if there's a place for that.
It's kind of short notice, unfortunately, for,
Bulbs.
but
Well, but if it's been in the pipeline on people's minds in
Mhm.
the past, they may have something they can, worth the ask.
All right. Okay. Anything else?
I have 2 things, Mr. Chair. It wasn't in the superintendent's update, but I was at the meeting with the lobbyists from K-12, one of whom I've known for 15 years. I thought that went really well. The issues brought up by Corinne were very good. My concern was to make sure that there wasn't some underlying movement. In the old days, they wanted to have, moved a higher number of students per teacher. That was big on their agenda. Of course, that makes more money, but it's not, according to what they had to say. That's now off, and I was pleased that it appears as though their legislative agendas are more in terms of quality as opposed to quantity. Was that? I think fair to say. So that was good. And then Hiawatha Valley Mental Health they took the board and we all went up to Kellogg and we had a potluck, and we actually went into every room with every teacher, including the quiet room, which is a really interesting thing to see, that you put kids in these things, but it's necessary. Anyway, it was really a very good experience to meet in the room with the teacher and then have them tell you what they did there first. And I thought it was really good. I mean, I don't know how you learn better about process than actually being at the place with the person who does the process. So anyway, it was very good. And our director, she's fantastic. I mean, she makes mistakes, like she did on, I can't remember.
George?
No, it's the one where we're doing the data, and then now but that didn't work out, so the schools are taking the data back now.
The Fastbridge.
Yeah, and right up, made a big mistake there. And you don't hear directors, superintendents, or bosses say that kind of stuff very often. It was really refreshing to have her say, that was a mistake, and we've corrected it, and we're moving on. So, anyway, we're in good hands there now. And I think Corinne would probably attest to that, too. So,
Good.
thank you.
So you have a big going away thing for you then, Kevin? when you-
No, I don't think so.
Figured Hiawatha, you've done a lot there since you've taken that position.
Absolutely.
And I think it's well appreciated by the board.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate
So
that.
it's always.
It's, when you're working with special education and looking at MNVA and Marge Blusky and what she had to deal with when she first came on, and Angela smiles, I do too, how difficult it is to think about, special education in an online setting, much less how difficult it is here. And when you look at a closed room, quiet, it's just a cylinder block room with nothing in it. Nothing. And that's where the kids have to go to, take a time out. It's interesting. It's good work, and the people who do that work are really special people too. So,
Was that the ALC or the SAIL program?
ALC.
Okay.
Oh, no, SAIL. It was young kids. Well, actually both could do it. They have kids volunteer to go in. Say, I need some quiet time. Boom, they go in. It's pretty. So anyway, it's good.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. Anybody else have anything?
Music Boosters auction tonight.
Yeah.
Yes,
Gotta go to the
Music
next.
Boosters auction tonight, and concert has just
Started.
begun, but I'm sure they will open the door for us in between numbers. We don't want to walk in during a number.
Okay. So,
Okay.
do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Joe, second by Ron. Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Hey, I'll be over